welcome to a new episode of Money Means Business. The Egyptian economy is becoming more resilient and more capable of absorbing crises, whether in the Middle East, whether regional crises, whether international crises, global crises like the one of the COVID-19. How and why? What are the reasons? Till when we are going to be able to continue like that? What are the obstacles on the way? This is going to be the core of our episode. But before we start and before welcoming my dear guest live here in the studio, let's live with the coming report or reports according to what our director is going to do. And then we are going to turn back to comment on the reports and to continue with analyzing the performance of the Egyptian economy, not only in this period, not only in the past few years, but also sustainability is a key word here. We are going to continue with speaking about what should the economic aspects of Egypt depend on in the middle of these very tough and hard circumstances worldwide. Right after this, we are going to be back with more, so stay tuned only on Nile TV International.
Lieutenant General Engineer Kamel El-Wazir, Minister of Transport, during his visit to Hungary, accompanied by Ambassador Mohammed El-Shenawi, the Egyptian ambassador there, inspected a factory, the Hungarian partner with the Russian company, in a project to manufacture and supply 1,300 new passenger railway vehicles. The minister also inspected the various production lines of the third-class air-conditioned vehicles and witnessed the stages of their manufacture, where the minister stressed the full compliance with the agreed technical specifications for all vehicles in order to ensure the provision of distinguished services to the public of passengers. Company officials stressed that the deal is the largest project for the transport industry in Hungary and embodies the positive and fruitful cooperation with Egypt in the railway field. The minister met in the presence of Ambassador Mohammed El-Shenawi, Minister of Technology and Innovation of the State of Hungary, who is concerned with transport issues of all kinds. The meeting witnessed the Minister of Transport's affirmation of the importance that Egypt attaches to cooperation with Hungary and what the railroad deal represents as a basis for this cooperation. The minister also stressed the importance of local manufacturing of rail cars in Egypt, which contributes to the settlement of this industry in Egypt and the launch of Egypt to be a center for exporting products to Arab and African markets. In the same context, informed sources in the Ministry of Transport said that the ministry has reached a final agreement with a German company regarding the implementation of the second and third phases of the express train project, and the German company will undertake the electrical works, signals and trains of the project. The implementation of the second and third phases comes within the state's plan to implement a network of fast trains with a length of 1,600 kilometers. The Ministry of Transport signed a contract with the German company to implement the first phase of the electrified train project with a length of 660 kilometers at a cost of $3 billion. The second phase aims to link 6 October Aswan, while the third phase between Hurghada, Safaga, Qina and Luxor at a cost of nearly $8 billion. It's expected to be signed during the first quarter of this year 2022 regarding the implementation of the second and third phases of the express train project. On the sidelines of the President's inauguration of several projects in the city of October, Lieutenant General Kamel El-Wazir stated that it was agreed with the Prime Minister of Hungary during his visit to it at the beginning of the week to manufacture a river bus, the Transon motor, provided that production will initially be on 6 buses, 2 for Cairo, 2 for Luxor and 2 for Aswan, in tourist areas. The minister added during his speech that he will not import the river bus but will establish a bus factory, and the Hungarians are ready to transfer manufacturing expertise to Egypt and not supply factories. Lieutenant General Kamel El-Wazir, Minister of Transport, stated that it was agreed with the Hungarian Prime Minister in principle on 6 buses, 2 to Cairo, 2 to Luxor and 2 to Aswan, to work in the tourist areas, and then the factory would later be produced for all countries in Africa and the Middle East.
Welcome back. Let me first welcome my dear guest live here in the studio, Dr. Saeed Al-Khouri, former Dean of the Faculty of Commerce, Ain Shams University, our economic expert and our professor in management. As we were talking just before being on air, management is a key word here, and maybe, not maybe, and sure, it's one of the most important key factors of any success. Sir, I'm very much delighted to have you here on Al TV International and to be my guest in this special episode of our program.
Thank you, and nice to be here. Thank you.
Dr. Saeed, let's start from scratch. As we are saying, the Egyptian economy is really becoming more resilient, facing many crises, particularly after the COVID-19 issue, which had its global negative impacts. But let's start from scratch, and let's start from November 2016 and adopting or following this very harsh economic reform program. Do you think starting then, this was the very first step on the right direction to be able to face such crises?
I believe if you go from scratch, we have to really talk about Egypt Vision 2030, which it was the starting or the focal point in terms of economic reform in Egypt. And we start to implement our strategy starting in November 2016, where we start in all different sectors. We have to really minimize the cost. We have to reduce subsidy in order really to push our economical system. And you mentioned during the COVID-19, which it affected the whole world. And thanks God, Egypt came out of, up to this point of time, from COVID-19 with a positive side in the economic development. And Egypt is the only country in the region, in the Middle East, in Africa, where the gross development product is in the plus side. And that is a good news for the economic reform. And our growth rate, last year it was 3.3. We expected this year it will go above 5%. And of course, there is the external environment and what's going on right now, the war between Russia and Ukraine and so on. It will affect the economic development, not only in Egypt and worldwide, because of the logistic issue, supply chain, and so on.
And the currency rates, and the wars, the global markets, the oil prices, everything. But let's focus on Egypt a little bit, if you permit me, because you mentioned in your answer very important keywords. Subsidies, for example. Reduction, is it a reduction of subsidies or restructuring the subsidy map? Because when we are speaking about Decent Life Initiative, when we are speaking about the state's care and keenness to give a hand to the low-income brackets, to take into consideration that they should not be that much affected with the economic reform, how do you see this equation? To take this into consideration and in the same time to implement the roadmap to 2030 development or sustainable development agenda?
Let me say it used to be subsidy, it was welfare. Now we are talking about workfare. In order to have healthy people, the 100 million healthy Egyptian initiative, Haya Karima, for example, all of that housing for needy people, all of that is subsidized by the government. But we have to switch from workfare where people just get subsidy and you do nothing, and now there is developing a skills for these people, for example, and now it's workfare. So instead of welfare, now we are talking about workfare in order to get the needy people only this subsidy. It was open for everybody, but you know, we have to focus in the needy people, and we can see, for example, a lot of people where they are considered to receive subsidy and they are not alive. You know,
they do not deserve this kind of subsidy.
Not only deserve, they are dead people, you know, and they still get the subsidy and so on. And really, when you work to organize and managing the subsidy system in all over Egypt, it became a lot of elimination and reducing the cost of this subsidy. But let me tell you, the government at on the other hand, do a lot of things for the needy people, not only monetary subsidy, but also in terms of housing, in terms of improving their quality of life, in terms of education, and all of that really with the crisis around us, it doesn't really limit or stop subsidizing the Egyptian people.
All what we are talking about side by side with many mega projects, national mega projects, like how I'm going to describe the NEC, the new administrative capital, the smart cities scattered all over Egypt, the infrastructure, the network of our roads and access all over the country, taking into consideration 1.5 million fadans reclaimed or under construction or underway of land reclamation. All these things, the silos, I'm not going to mention all, but all this, in addition to the new economic zone of the Suez Canal, the new Suez Canal, how do you see having all this side by side?
Let me tell you, we were in the sleeping mood for the last 50 years.
I like that term.
Yeah, because when we go from Cairo to New York, for example, over the oceans, they turn off the light and everybody goes to sleep. We were in the sleeping mode for the last 50 years. Remember, the whole idea behind whatever it happened up to this point of time, it is really to make Egypt as an industrial hub in Africa and the Middle East. That's number one. In order to attract this business or foreign direct investment to Egypt, you have to have infrastructure. When we talk about highway, I never dreamed about having this kind of highway in Egypt 5 years ago. Now we have super highway, we have a freeway all over Egypt, not only in the government of Cairo or Alexandria, but all over Egypt. And that is the good news. When you have infrastructure, it's not only the road, but building business in both sides of this road, it's alive. And everybody can see it now, it's a reality. Also, I don't know, people, they forgot a few years ago, the electricity used to, not
Witness
working.
Absolutely. Cutouts.
Now, foreign direct investment need energy, and we have excess of our energy now. We have surplus of our energy, and we really transfer it to other country around us. And that is infrastructure. It means roads and tunnels and bridges and energy. Also, how to simplify the process of attracting foreign direct investment. For an investor from abroad who come to try to invest in Egypt, it used to stay in order to get the permission to start his or her business. It take like 1 or 2 years. Now it take minutes in order to get approval for, and all of that together, with God will, it will make Egypt in a very near future as a hub for industry in the area you mentioned.
And energy hub too.
Energy hub,
Yes.
industrial hub, agriculture hub, and of course tourism. It is the key or the historical income as an income avenue for Egypt. So God blessed Egypt with many things and was working together. And remember, the government doesn't work by itself.
Sure. And
President Sisi really integrate private sector with public sector together in order to attract more and more and more mega project in the future.
And also to care about the micro and macro projects, the SMEs, and to implement the financial inclusion on the ground to make sure that everything is going to be side by side. I mean, the state is, of course, does care to execute on the ground the mega national projects and on time with the pre-planned scheduled, and in the same time to help all those very small businesses to flourish and to continue on the right direction, and to empower women and youth, making sure that this is going to be for the best interest of the Egyptian economy at large. True?
Absolutely, it's integration. We are not talking about mega project only. For example, the Central Bank of Egypt provide loans for a small or very small business to help them not only with money, with feasibility study and how to market their product and service abroad and so on. And we are the government, and we're working in all different perspectives of not only a small or intermediate business or large or mega project. They are working with all of this because and that is really reduce the unemployment rate in Egypt. And now the unemployment rate is going down year after year. And I believe in the last few years, 5-6 years, Egypt moved to a different stage worldwide now in economical system, in political system, and we start to market ourselves through a youth World Forum, for example. And now we are going to have in November one of the biggest international or global conference for climate change. It will be in Egypt, absolutely, which the leader of the world will be here in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh. And that's good news. Remember when we are trying to get into World Series few years ago, about 25 years ago, we got zero. Now we have an opportunity to host the mega event in Egypt. And that's the good news. I believe and strongly believe, and that is my forecast, Egypt within 2 years, it will be in a different place in the world map.
Under one condition, that we manage the population issue.
Absolutely.
The growth of population. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said it more than once, and last but not least, it was last week, last Monday, when he was inaugurating this national mega project, how developing the Egyptian family planning, family control, taking into consideration how the growth on population may be such a hinder or an obstacle on the way in front of our economic development. How do you see this, sir, and how do you see the state's keenness to just be that transparent with our people, just to let them know that they are part and parcel of our economic move? And as you've kindly mentioned, it's not the state only who should work for our economy to flourish, but the people also should have their share.
Absolutely. I believe literacy rate play very important role in that. And remember, President Sisi, he mentioned a few days ago when he talked about the project, when he opened this kind of projects, growth rate and population rate.
Yes.
If our growth rate less than our the rate of population, it doesn't really make a difference. And we should really work on that. It is part of it. It's education, it's awareness, and not only in the big city, but we have to go to rural area where the illiteracy rate is low, is very high, and we have to work hard on that in order to really control the birth rate and so on. But this, it will take some time, but the government and the people and all different parts of Egypt have to focus in this issue, because we have a growth rate, and at the same time there is increase in our birth rate and so on. So it will observe all this growth in the long time, in the long run. So we have to work on that. That's a big issue. And remember, in China, for example, they don't provide any service if you have more than 2 kids. You know, only permitted for 2 kids. They will provide you with all service, but no service for the 3rd or the 4th child and so on. And with this kind of law in China, they reduce the birth rate into 2, maximum of 2 for a family, which is reasonable. And but it needs a lot of awareness. Awareness not only not in Cairo, in big city, but we have to go to rural city, in Upper Egypt, in the the valley and so on, with all this small village. We have to focus on that.
So this should be one of the main issues to be tackled with Decent Life initiative, which targets more than 60 million Egyptians. If you want to really live a decent life, then you should know well that only two, as you've kindly mentioned, is one of the guarantees, and maybe the only guarantee we are the modern state or the new republic. Sir, when it comes to statistics and numbers, they do not lie. And maybe because of the numbers and statistics, many international mega economic institutions, when they now release reports about the Egyptian economy, they all the time speak about going up. How do you see us looking at these reports right now, whether from Fitch, from the IMF, from the World Bank, and Egypt's keenness to continue cooperating with such entities to continue on the right track? And here I'm talking about businesses, not about loans, about having a win-win situation. A win-win situation for both sides, Egypt and this huge economic entity.
Remember, as you mentioned, all economical and financial institutions worldwide, besides what you mentioned, like Fitch, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, European Bank for Development, and all of these international indicators. It's not a local indicator, so by the way, which it shows Egypt the growth rate in the positive side, which is a good news, and that's a good news for attracting foreign direct investment. When you have a growth rate, it shows the investor it's a safe environment, so they will be able to invest in Egypt. And I believe the foreign direct investment in the last 2-3 years, the curve start to go up, and it will go more and more. Why that? Because Egypt, God bless Egypt with its location, with the, remember, with all this development, now the terrorism, it's almost disappeared in Egypt.
Thank God.
And if you remember, 7 years ago, it was not safe to walk in the street in Egypt. Now it's safe.
In certain areas.
In Sinai, for example.
Yes, but it was not. It was safe all the time, and it will continue to be safe in Egypt. Inshallah, ادخلوها بسلام آمنين.
Absolutely.
Just enter Egypt and you are going to be safe. This is the Holy Quran, and what
Absolutely.
was implemented on the ground is saying that we are capable of fighting terrorism. And President Abdel Fattah Sisi said it more than once. We were fighting terrorism on behalf of the whole world.
Absolutely.
Sir, this is going to lead me to ask. Here, politics cannot be at all separated from economy. Egypt returned to its position not only in the Middle East or in the African continent, but worldwide. Keeping the sovereignty, stability, safety of Egypt was one of the main reasons behind regaining our position, and how?
As I mentioned before, now the foreign direct investor feel safe to invest in Egypt. And it is a strong policy in Egypt is to fight terrorism, which it really happened. And now we talk about what we saw years ago in Sinai and many different areas outside the border of the capital. But now it's controlled. So it's safe haven right now in Egypt for foreign direct investors to invest in Egypt. Also, remember, to be in the world map, it needs several ingredients, not only economical issue, not only industrial issue or agricultural issue. The leadership, it has a major role for having to position yourself in the world map among the other superpower nation. Leadership, I believe, that's the most important assets we are blessed with these days. And when I talk about leadership, I'm talking about the leadership of President Sisi. He really, when he speak, the whole world listen. And it wasn't like that before. And I put it as a major ingredient beside our industrial reform, agricultural reform, tourism reform. All this reform I believe on top of that,
And
the
following
leadership
up, yes,
of this
and
president.
following up the memorandum of understanding or the agreement signed, no more ink on paper. There is all the time executives on the ground who are following up the implementation of each element in any of those memo of understanding. It's not only the summit talks, there are ministerial committees, they are joint high-ranking committees, they are chambers of commerce from Egypt and others, counterparts all over the world meeting together to witness this implementing those memos on the ground. How do you see following up the agreements, following up implementing the projects on the ground? I don't think that many of our ministers or our businessmen now are in their offices. They are all the time there in the economic zones, in the industrial zones, to see how, to see the percentage of work, the construction work, how the mega projects are going through. How do you see this, sir?
As I mentioned, it's the leadership. Basically, I differentiate between two things. We used to talk before. Now it's do. There is say versus do. And
Deeds, not words.
Presidency is a doer. Doer, it means not for his own, not for his government, not for his fame, but he want to see Egypt in a different place. We want to see Egyptian proud to be an Egyptian. He want to see Egyptian passport or identification recognized worldwide, and that's an image. The image he always talk about the quality of life for Egyptian, and that is do. Do, it means he market Egypt worldwide. You can see him in all different places worldwide, promoting and attracting mega project to Egypt, and that is a leadership. And his leadership is managing by walking around. He goes after the prayer of El Fajr, and he go and visit this place and that place, and that is God bless him and God save him, because he's doing a lot for his people, and he's doing it with goodwill. And remember, goodwill bring a drive, and God gave him the drive, and he's doing more and more. And my expectation, it is really in the near future, will do more and more, and will overcome any crisis surrounding us.
And here I should give one example. Of course, when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, wheat is a key word here. Wheat is a key commodity. And many people thought that this is going to affect us maybe in the first of a big list from the Arab countries. And guess what? There were very wonderful statements which were released by His Excellency Minister of Internal Trade and Supply, Dr. Ali Al-Musalhi, speaking about our national reserve of wheat, saying that we do have about 4 months and maybe just a little bit more than that. And with the silos we had, with taking into consideration that we should be self-dependent when it comes to wheat in the very near future. So no worries. How do you see these statements being said in this very crucial timing and just ahead also of Ramadan? By the way, Ahlan Ramadan exhibition is going to start from the 24th of March with 20 to 25% discount for the Egyptians. This is Egypt, and I think that we are going to turn to be the basket of seeds. How do you see this, and how do you see how the cabinet managed the crisis, as you're a professor of management?
Remember, our reserve from wheat, it goes up to 6 months. That's first of all. And remember, before we used to speak one alternative, which we depend on only one source in order to get all our needs from that particular source. Remember, in all different, not only wheat, but on all different things, even the military equipment and so on. Now we are talking about the language of alternative, and that is really the way the government think, the leader of our country think. It is not only depending on one source, but in multi sources.
Diversifying our sources.
Absolutely. That is the language of alternative, which it was lacking before. We used to think in one direction, and we dig in that direction, and maybe we end up with, with a wall, but now we are talking about the language of alternative, several alternative. One course of action, it doesn't work. We have other and many other courses of action we can take. And that is really to secure, remember wheat, it was a major issue. And remember a few weeks ago, 1.5 million acre for wheat, and that is really, it will satisfy the demand from wheat up to 80%. We used to have 80% we exported from outside. Now we are depending on ourselves by 80% with internal production of our wheat from the 1.5 million acre, and more to come, of course. Remember, we were depending on the Nile River in water. Now we have filterization. We are really switching the sea water into drinking water and agricultural water and all of that. That is the language of alternative. And the whole government working in that direction, and the whole government working with the president and with the society. Remember, there is an old saying, you can't clap with one hand. You have to clap with two hands. You need two hands to clap.
Well, right after the short break, we are going to turn back with more with my dear guest live here in the studio, Professor Dr. Saeed Al-Khouli, former Dean of Faculty of Commerce, Ain Shams University, and our economic expert. Stay tuned.
The central bank announced last Thursday that the value of gold included in their foreign exchange reserves during February 2022 increased by about $2.703 billion to reach $6.907 billion, compared to $4.204 billion at the end of January 2022. The Central Bank of Egypt revealed that net foreign reserves recorded about $40.993 billion at the end of February 2022, compared to $40.980 billion at the end of January 2021, an increase of $13 million. The head of the National Authority for Tunnels announced the inauguration of Al Salam electrified train project the 10th of Ramadan next month. He added that the project targets all segments of passengers and that the price of the electric train ticket will be suitable for all categories of the Egyptian people. The specialized tourism website The Travel highlighted in a report under the title The Egyptian Tourist Destination, 10 Unique Places You Must Visit in Egypt. 10 distinct tourist places in Egypt, during which it pointed out that Egypt's rich history and wonderful Egyptian antiquities make it the first destination in general. He described the places that he highlighted as unique and always in the forefront, which is the city of Cairo and its tourist and archaeological sites, in addition to the temples of Abu Simbel in Aswan, the White Desert, the city of Alexandria, the temples of Karnak, and the Valley of the Kings in Luxor, the city of Aswan, and the Red Sea coast. Egypt occupies first place in Africa and sixth in the world in aquaculture and third in the world in the production of tilapia fish, which made this sector an important contributor to ensuring food security and the growth of Egyptian economy. As the American Agricultural Affairs Office in Cairo announced in a report, the fish production in Egypt increased by 17.64% from 1.7 million tons in 2016 to 2 million in 2020. The head of the Leather Industry Chamber revealed that the past 3 years witnessed the establishment of 33 factories for sports shoes. The head of the chamber said that the investments of these factories vary according to the size of the production capacities, noting that their production volume may reach 24 million pairs of sports shoes, equivalent to 80,000 pairs per day. The Information and Decision Support Center of the Council of Ministers published on its official page an infographic regarding the classification of Egypt as one of the largest electronics consumption markets in the Middle East. The infographic indicated that Fitch Solutions ranked Egypt as one of the largest electronics consumption markets in the Middle East and Africa, in the context of recovering from the repercussions of the coronavirus pandemic and the start of the global economic recovery. Dr. Mohammed Maït, Minister of Finance, said that digital transformation led to an increase in tax revenues by 13% in the last fiscal year, despite the corona crisis. During the Ministry of Finance's post-digital transformation conference, the minister explained that more than 52,000 companies have registered on the electronic invoice system, and more than 43,000 companies have activated their accounts on the electronic system so far, and sent more than 150 million electronic invoices, reflecting our success in this experience, which Egypt was able to be among the first countries in Africa and the Middle East to implement it.
Welcome back. Dr. Said, you mentioned a very important event which is going to take place, inshallah, later in the year in November, and it's going to be hosted by Sharm el-Sheikh, the COP27. And today there was one of the meetings presided over by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi with the preparatory committee, totally responsible for the big issue, and he gave his directives to have this conference or this gathering as a story of success, to reflect the Egyptian position, to say how much Egypt is capable of hosting such events by showing the green investment, investing in green hydrogen, for example, turning Sharm el-Sheikh into a green city, green or friendly means of transportation, electricity, wind power, you name it. How do you see the choice of Egypt, first? Second, the preparations, maybe 1 year ahead of the conference itself, and all the time speaking about that in the media. I mean, just to have the people as part and parcel of the issue, to share the cabinet or to share the state, the efforts exerted on the ground.
That's Egypt, that's the leadership. You think that is a worldwide event. It is not a local event or a small conference like any other meeting and so on. That is a mega event. That is a worldwide event. That is most of the world leaders will be in that event. And in order to have this event in the right way, when you organize a conference, you must have the time to make sure everything it's in place. And with our volunteer youth, which they succeeded in many events like World Youth before in Aswan, in Sharm el-Sheikh, 6 times, we are prepared to really carry out this mega event, which it will host the world leader. I remember that it will be the biggest event in Egyptian history. And remember, President Sisi talked about the 4th industrial revolution. He talked about the green economy. He talked about the green industry. And with all the work for the last 7 years, renewable energy, wind energy, with gas energy, all of that really, it is to save our environment. There is a lot of pollution in the world, especially in Asia and in Europe. And now we are really have to protect our environment. how to implement the environmental standard in our industry, in the way of life, and that's what we when we apply fourth industrial revolution, there is needs for technological advance like artificial intelligence and all of that to really switch the Egyptian economy to not only certain aspect, but we have to
Here I
move
have
with
two
the world.
questions, and we are
Sure.
unfortunately
I'm
running
sorry.
out of time. Sir, I was asking this question in specific about COP27 as one of the very important gatherings or conferences which are going to be hosted by Egypt, in addition to the, for example, the Mediterranean Gas Forum, EDEX, EGIX. I mean, there are global or international events hosted by Egypt. How do you see these events as a free propaganda for Egypt, free marketing for Egypt, to attract more investors from all over the world who are keen to invest in this specific field? Here it's renewable energy. With EDICT, it's oil. It's a petroleum field. With the Mediterranean Gas Forum, it's in gas. Others are going to focus on petrochemicals, for example. You name it. How do you see the importance of holding such events to be a source of attraction?
It is really, it's a good selling point if you are talking about from the marketing perspective.
This is it?
That is the one. Remember, you can't really imagine the number of worldwide leader, and I'm not talking about African leader or Arab leader, I'm talking about the whole world leader, from States, from Canada, from Europe, all European country, all Asian country will come and really participate in this mega event, and we have to do it in the right way. And President Sisi, he want to make sure everything going in the right direction. Remember what we have done so far. Road infrastructure, it give an image for Egypt. Energy supply, it give image to Egypt, and I believe after this event, the foreign direct investment, it will be doubled and tripled in Egypt. And my forecast, and my, I believe in the next 2 years, you will see Egypt as a hub for industrial area because of its location. We are close, we are Red Sea and Mediterranean Sea, the Nile River, which considered to be one of the main way for transportation and logistic, and President Sisi think about that to have ferry. We can use it in the Nile River, and that is all this development, we are going to gain the fruit of it within 2 years.
Inshallah. One final question: digital transformation. To what extent do you think that what we are doing now, or what we are hoping for, that digital transformation is going to be one of the main factors behind any kind of success, whether it's economic, culture, social, you name it? How do you see giving digital transformation a first priority when it comes to our agenda?
It's part of many agenda we have. Remember, with digital transformation, you reduce corruption, you reduce the time, and all of that, it turned out to more success in our business environment. When we talk about digital transformation, we are trying to cut the interaction between the provider of the service and the receiver of the service. And many digital transformation, it's already your ID, your birth certificate, your passport, you can have it over the internet right now, which is a good news, but it has to be implemented all over Egypt.
And
part of it's done, and
Inshallah.
we are going in the right direction in that direction.
I really enjoyed my time, Dr. Said.
The same here.
We hope that we are going to see you in more episodes of our program. You are an added value to our
Inshallah.
screen.
Thank you very much.
We were very much delighted to have with us Dr. Said Al-Khouli, our economic expert and the former dean of Faculty of Commerce, Ain Shams University. Thank you very much, sir.
You're very welcome.
On behalf of my dear colleagues Kamel Ali, Nermeen Nadeem, and myself, Nermeen Abdurrahman, many thanks for watching. Stay tuned to Online TV International, always for more.